most of our members basically have their grandma's banana bread recipe and a dream.
Yep.
They don't have an HR director. They don't have a lawyer. They don't have an ops person. They don't have a systems manager. It's them.
Yep.
Right. And they have this dream of how they can open a restaurant. And I love that. But it also means they need someone they can call for the information that they don't have.
If you enjoy this podcast, don't forget to subscribe and follow it in your favorite podcasting app or YouTube. It's the best way to avoid missing future episodes, and it helps the podcast tremendously. Welcome to the Unlock Potential Podcast, and today we've got a special treat for you. Let's say you run a restaurant or dream of opening one. You want to know what it really takes to survive. Why do some thrive and why do some die? And what can you do about it? Well, we've got Anthony Anton, the CEO of the Washington Hospitality Association, to answer this and more. Let's get started. All right, everyone, we have an amazing guest today. Super excited to welcome Anthony Anton, who's the president and CEO of the Washington Hospitality Association. And just want to welcome you and say hi to everyone.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to having a conversation about how we lead and other things. So it's always great to be part of those kind of dialogues. It just so you know, it's Anton, but that's not your fault. Greeks don't know how to spell, so clearly when my grandfather tried to translate Greek to English, he wrote it wrong. So everyone always says Anton, but it is Anton.
Anton. Okay, I'll remember that. Thank you. That's awesome. And just for Anthony, I'm wearing one of my favorite jerseys, number 12.
Go Hawks. Go Hawks.
Absolutely.
I love it.
I always consider Seattle like my second home. Originally from Canada, but I always feel like Toronto, Seattle is it. I love Pacific Northwest and everything about it.
Well, and the Hawks up here are, a big part of the entire culture of the Puget Sound area, and it is funny because I think that Oregon, British Columbia, Washington, and a lot of the different parts of Canada, I feel like we're all kind of one culture. There's a lot of similarities across that northwest corner of our continent.
Yep. Yeah, we feel like a family because
yeah,
like my wife works at a Vancouver company, even though we live in Seattle for like over 10 years, and I just feel like it's like definitely one piece.
100%. I'm
gonna ask you a really serious question. We're gonna start with this. All right,
let's jump right into it.
This is gonna
go heavy. Let's go big.
Check this out. This is gonna test you. All right. As the CEO of the Washington Hospitality Association, what's your view of pineapple on pizza?
No.
Okay, that was an absolute no. All right.
Now I do like pineapple in my Moscow Mule.
Oh,
have you ever had a good Moscow Mule?
I have, absolutely.
So throw a little piece of pineapple or pineapple juice in that.
Yeah.
And that's candy.
Yeah, my wife and I love that. We love cock and bowl ginger beer in that. And yeah, definitely way to go.
Now, I'm not opposed to fruit on pizza. I just don't like pineapple on pizza. I've had apple on pizza.
I have not tried that. Really? Apple?
I had an apple, bacon, and apple, bacon, and I'm trying to remember what kind of cheese pizza, and it was really good.
That feels Canadian. Where was that? What did you try?
I believe it was in Wenatchee, if I remember.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
Which apple land.
Makes sense.
So I'm not opposed to the concept. Just the pineapple on pizza just doesn't work for me.
That's fair. So I'm like 50-50 now. Like half the camp so far is no, and half the camp is resolutely yes. And so
yeah, we're a divided country for sure.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So no pineapple. Okay. Now this is an even trickier question.
All right.
I don't even know if you're allowed to say this. Name me your favorite restaurant in Washington State and type of food. Are you allowed to say that, or is that just?
Yeah, I'll probably go with type of food.
Okay.
That's very much like picking between children.
Yep.
But I can go food. So I'm all four of my grandparents are right off the boat from Greece.
Nice.
And so we're a very, very Greek family. And when I can get really good Greek food, I seek it out. If I can get some lamb or some souvlaki or any kind of Greek food. My wife's not Greek, and we don't live in an area where there's a lot of it. So when I'm anywhere near it, I seek it out.
Actually, you don't know this, but same here. Like, I love Greek food, and so I'm always about souvlaki. Like, I'm from Toronto originally, so I have like mini Greek town of all kinds of places. And so
There's a lot of Greeks in that area.
yeah. I'm saying growing up, like many of my friends are Greek, and they always wear they bring the Greece flag, and so it's like, and it's a beautiful flag, right? The blue and white. So
The blue and white
yeah,
with the
yeah,
stripes, and yeah.
yep.
No, I got one in my garage.
Oh, of course. Okay. Nice. Cool. Well, let's go to your personal stories. So, like, we'd love to hear, how did you get into restaurants? How did you end up in the as like the big cheese at the hospitality association? And yeah, what do you do there, and what's it all about?
Yeah, well, well, being Greeks, if you've seen my big fat Greek wedding, and the Greeks all had restaurants, right? Well, that was my life very much growing up. So my family was in the restaurant business. In fact, I think you can see it off camera here, is up there on the wall. That's my dad's menu from his restaurant there, kind of on the wall.
Nice.
And so I very much grew up with my mom did all the books, and my uncle was the cook, and my dad was the business manager and bar manager, and we just grew up in our family's restaurant. And very much was my family's chance to come into the U.S. and the way we settled here, right, and have our own piece of the American dream.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always loved that. And I went to WSU, Washington State University, which has the #2 hospitality program in the country. But of course, I went for politics, and so I didn't get into that. But I was working for the state legislature and had a restaurant background, and the Restaurant Association called and said, would you come help us build a government affairs program here in the state? And I said, I'll do that for a year. And then I did it for 2 years. And then I just fell in love with the industry. And then all the crazy stuff that I thought was my dad and my uncle being insane, I realized it's the industry. Yes, they are crazy, but so are a lot of our members, and this passion to have their own business and serve customers and give great hospitality and welcome people into the home and have people have a better day because of it. It's a very unique personality. And then the people I got to know and love reminded me so much of my family life growing up that I fell in love with it. In fact, one of my favorite stories is I got to know a woman who her mom came from Vietnam and opened a pho restaurant in the 70s, 80s, late 70s, early 80s in Seattle. And her mom's story and my grandfather's story coming from Greece in the 40s were like so parallel. Their stories and settling and working in her mom's restaurant, my dad working in his dad's restaurant, right? And they came from, I don't know if you drew a map between Vietnam and Greece exactly where the opposite sides of the world are, but they're pretty far apart.
Yeah.
To come here and have this industry given, that modern day opportunity. I just love that story, and I see it every day.
Yep.
I see people saying, I have food of my heritage or food of my family, or I've got a really creative thing and a passionate thing I can serve. And I give people in my community a better day through great food and great service. And I love that.
That's awesome. I don't think I ever told you. I have a very similar story. So my uncle opened a restaurant in Canada, in Montreal, or a suburb. But yeah, and so kind of grew up in that kind of setting, and kind of same thing. It's like a family. And then of course I worked at a lot of other restaurants, including McDonald's. So I like to share, hey, there's my name.
You still have your name tag.
I still have my name tag, and my employee of the month plaque is over there. And so anyways, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it's I love the restaurant, and the camaraderie is amazing. I'm still friends with a lot of people I used to work with. Like literally, I text them like once a week just to see how things are going, and we've all scattered, and it's just I don't know how you describe it, right? It's kind of like you've been through this epic journey together of trials and tribulation, and it's just so much fun.
Well, and then there is something about it, and the people I grew up that working in the restaurants with, I'm still friends on Facebook or otherwise, or I'll run into them, and their memories of that are fantastic. Over a third of people got their very first job in a restaurant, right?
Yep.
And learn their foundation of a work ethic and how to move forward in hospitality.
And it's a great career path. I always tell people, I'm a third-time founder. I worked in tech for a long time also, but I say, hey, you know what? I got my roots in restaurants. Really, like when you're dealing with like an irate customer throwing a sandwich at you, like, right. Duck, right? But how do you keep calm, composed, and diffuse the situation? Like, where else do you learn this? And so it's such a great place to start your career and then some.
You get great people skills and great dodgeball skills at the
Yeah,
same
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
time.
Actually, speaking of Washington State University, I want to share this. So, like this is fun. So you're a Hall of Famer. And so I was searching this, and let's see if I can pull this up. Check this out. So you are a 2023 Hall of Fame. You're the first Hall of Famer I've had on the podcast. And ironically, when I looked at the history, you're also the last one. Like no one can come after you. Like you're literally like the last one. There's a whole history of Hall of Famers. And then after Anthony, they're like, okay, no one can go after this. And so yeah. Anyways,
They closed the door behind me.
Yeah.
No, there's more on their way. They just had some turnover there. That's funny, but it was such an honor. I mean, I went to WSU, absolutely fell in love with it. I think a lot of why I love hospitality is why I love that campus of, making eye contact and saying hello to everyone, whether you know them or not, is just part of that culture over there. And so to be able to be part of the program after I graduated and in my role here, continuing to help people graduate and find work and grow great careers, person after person who just found great success through hospitality and then through that hospitality program in Pullman. It was one of the highlights and really humbling moments of my life.
Love it. And I don't think it's well known, but so many people are from your great school. Like I remember when I used to work at Expedia, or GM or SVP, they all went to your school as well. And I'm like, hey, me from Canada, I didn't really know US schools that well. And so like, what is that school? And so I think a lot of successful business leaders come from there. And yeah, they just have an amazing curriculum there.
Well, and again, I think both the programs, I think the communications program, the engineering program, the agriculture program, the hospitality program are all ranked worldwide and they're great programs. But I also think it's part of that campus that you friendly as an expectation, right? And you get to know people from all around the country and people from all around the world who've come there, and you on a larger, maybe a more urban campus, you can hide and you can meet 4 or 5 people, go to class and never get to know. But in Pullman, you just get to meet all this rich fabric of different people who've come from all around the country to a wheat field.
Yep.
And they spend 4 years together. It's fantastic.
I got another question about Seattle in general. So like, since I lived there for so long, the food scene is amazing. I think it's world class, absolutely up there. But how come, in my view anyways, it's not as well known? Like you think about like food scene, like when people want to go on a food tour, it's just not as well known. But I think it's up there. It should be. Like there's just so many great restaurants. So do you agree with that? And if so, like why is it not as well known?
Well, one, I think if you think of the worldwide food scenes, you typically automatically connect it to the top 4 or 5 populated cities. So I think there's, to some degree, you think of Chicago and New York, they're just such big cities.
Yep.
And Seattle's growth has really been within the last 15 years. So I think it's certainly grown a lot. A ton of James Beard Award winners have come from the Puget Sound area. And a lot, Red Robin was founded in Seattle.
Yep.
Starbucks was founded in Seattle.
Yep.
Old Spaghetti Factory was founded in the Northwest. And the market is so tough, and the environment and the stuff they have to go through here, that if you can build a successful model here, it'll travel really well.
You can go anywhere.
And and so I think that's why you've seen so many places get good here and everywhere else gets easier.
Good point.
Because it's so fierce. But I there's still so many great places and so many great chefs. And it's really even moved beyond Seattle. I think you're seeing the San Juans and Bellevue and Tacoma and some of the surrounding areas really also developed some fabulous chef-owned restaurants that are great. And our ethnic food here is fabulous. We're about 40% of our restaurants have an ethnic theme, and from places all over the world. So you really can, travel the continent into these different cities and travel the world and try food from Africa and try food from all different kinds of Asia, and so many people here have are pursuing that. I think that's one of the things that makes us richer is we embrace all these ethnic cuisines.
Yep. Yeah, and the Thai food there is great because I'm from Toronto. There's a lot of Asian food, but I never actually had Thai food until I came to Seattle, and so it's so odd. And then after I had, this is awesome. It's so good here. And then so super super.
It was
amazing.
really funny. About a decade ago, I went back to DC, and the staffers there were like, "We're gonna go have really good Chinese food." I'm like, "Oh, great, yay!" And I'm like, "This is not good Chinese compared to what we have here."
Kind of my town, right? Yeah.
Right.
Come here.
Well, probably no different than getting really, really good Tex-Mex food up here in Washington. It's probably not the same as what you get down in Texas and Arizona.
Yeah. Absolutely. Let's talk about the association. So, how do you explain to someone new, like, what does it do? What does it represent? And what are some misconceptions about it in general?
So we are the trade association for all of Washington's restaurants, hotels, and hospitality businesses. And our job is to try to make Washington State one of the best places in the world to work or run, operate a restaurant, hotel, or hospitality business. So at the end of the day, we're trying to make this region one of the best. And it has a lot of challenges. That statement is certainly a big, hairy, audacious goal. But we're clear on that's our goal. Now, we'll do that through 4 ways. If you're in the region and you see me on the news or something, it's probably something to do with my government affairs work, because we do a lot of work around trying to have a great business climate here in Washington, and making sure the things we work on and the way we approach business really helps breed great hospitality. We really want people to have great careers, and we want to do a lot to illuminate great careers. Unfortunately, the average person thinks of a restaurant job and maybe thinks of that entry-level point, because that was their experience in high school. You talked about where you started. But the reality is a ton of people after 4 or 5 years, make more money climbing the ladder in our industry than they did when they first come out of college. Yeah. And then they keep growing. And so whether they end up owning their own restaurant or hotel, or whether they become a regional manager or a GM of a hotel property, or a ton of suppliers from our industry recruit right out of kitchens and right out of lobbies because you understand the industry. So there's a ton of 6-figure jobs that start out at minimum wage jobs.
Yeah.
And we've seen their way through it. And those stories become so fun.
Yeah.
They just do.
I remember like when I worked at McDonald's, I just started there making, I think it's $5.15 an hour. And I remember this really clearly. And then I remember I got a 25-cent raise. This is in the 90s. So anyway, but when I heard what the store manager made, and I was like, what? How is that possible? I don't remember the exact number, but it was almost 6 figures and back in the 90s. And I was just like, that's more money than most like execs make in other places. Like, that's crazy. Really?
Right.
And the milestones are amazing. Like someone that, like, example, the store I worked at is a franchise, but if you work there for 15 years or longer, you get a car. And if you work, like, so the idea is there's these mile markers like down the road where these crazy milestones when you hit it. Because I remember like our assistant manager, she got her car, 15 years, she got the car, and we're all like, wow, that's amazing. And so, yeah, there's just such a great career trajectory that people don't realize that.
Well, and if you love this, I mean, a lot of people get their job as a transition or a starting point, because we do have entry-level jobs that teach those things. But if you love it and you stay with it, the chance to grow and, get a side of fries with a 2-car garage is absolutely possible. And so to see that continue to grow. So that's the second thing we do is illuminate career pathways. We also try to provide a lot of programs that help small business and others save money. Most of our members basically have their grandma's banana bread recipe and a dream.
Yep.
They don't have an HR director. They don't have a lawyer. They don't have an ops person. They don't have a systems manager. It's them.
Yep.
Right. And they have this dream of how they can open a restaurant. And I love that. But it also means they need someone they can call for the information that they don't have. They don't have a 4-year HR degree. So they need to call someone and say, hey, I've really got a young person. How can I grow their skills? Or, my neighbor has a 15-year-old kid. Can they come work for me for the summer? Well, no, but when they turn 16, here are the rules.
Yep.
Right. And so the ability to have that support of a company, a phone call away, who has expertise in your business, is a high value for a ton of people. So being a primary source is the third thing we do. And then lastly, not lastly, but also very important is those programs, is having something that you can manage your workers' comp claims or figure out your healthcare costs, programs that help you. You didn't get into business to manage a workers' comp claim. You got into it because you really wanted to have a great bar scene and really engage your community with a great nightlife. So let us manage your workers' comp claims so you can stay focused on your guests having a great experience.
I don't know if this is unique to your association, but like, since I live in Seattle for well over a decade, I have worked with and know a lot of restaurant owners, and they hold you and your associate in such high regard. They're like,
well, that's very
so like if you're in the restaurant business, they're like, oh, you got to talk to, the hospitality association. And I'm like, and me, I work for my uncle, my grandfather, and others, but I've never operated one. So I don't know, like what does that mean and what do they do? But it was just so visceral, where they're like, no, you don't understand. You have to meet with them. You have to work with them. They're amazing. And so anyway, kudos to you and what you've done. But it's just very respectful.
Very kind. We are the country's third largest hospitality association, fourth largest. Wow. So after the National Restaurant Association, after the Florida Hotel and Restaurant Association, we're number 3. So even though we're a mid-sized state, but we really love hospitality. We really love that American dream factor.
Yeah.
We really love, at the end of the day, our people are just trying to give you a better day, a great night's sleep, and it's fun.
Today's episode is brought to you by Tonda, the smarter way to retain and engage your skilled workforce. Here's the thing. High turnover, disengagement, and financial stress are costing businesses more than they realize. That's where Tonda comes in. Leading employers are already using Tonda's financial wellness benefits to boost retention, increase productivity, and keep their best employees longer. And here's why this matters. Tonda is already helping major companies across the U.S., and unlocked potential listeners have the exclusive opportunity to get in before the rush hits the open market. Be among the first to supercharge your workforce with Tonda. Learn more at tonda.io/Jesse. That's TANDA.io/Jesse. We're gonna play a quick game here. So right. we're gonna do this. So I think you're gonna like it. So I'm gonna share something from Reddit, and I think you'll like it. So here we go. So on Reddit, I said, hey, what's the biggest issues you're facing as a restaurant owner? What do you think is the number one thing?
It's either going to be cost or staffing.
Bam, you got it. Staffing. So in the last year, it came up like 24 times.
Yeah.
Would love to talk about it. So why is it an issue, and why is it so like prevalent? Like anyone can search for this, but it's so like just stands out big time.
Well, I think we have a couple things going on. One, I think we have a massive generational change. And I think it's exciting. I love change in the world. I think change is a good thing. I don't think we should ever be afraid of it.
Yeah.
But I also think we need to recognize it's happening and then figure out how we deal with it. Right? That doesn't mean it's awful. It just means it's different.
Yeah.
And we are seeing a massive retirement of boomers who've hung on for a long time, and a much smaller generation of Gen X, and two somewhere in the middle generations of Y and Z, right? And so Gen X is so much smaller that every boomer who's retiring, there's not enough people to replace them. Which means people are hiring up faster, people are transitioning faster, people are moving on faster, and so that creates a shortage of work at that entry-level position because there's more work than jobs. And we've really been in that situation for about 8-9 years, which over time, that backlog and that shortage of workers because of the demand for workers is a serious thing. I think you combine that with the number of people who work at a young age and want that job, and it's between 16 and 19 as their first job, that number is just down quite a bit. So teen labor, teen work hours is down significantly. Where most people used to get their first job in a restaurant, that number was over 50%. A lot of people now don't get their first job till after they graduate from college. And more common. And so the workforce just is not participating at a younger age like they used to, which compounds that generational factor of finding great workers.
And I meet with a lot of owners, and they're like, I'm understaffed. It's like there are jobs I'm trying to hire. I'm understaffed. What's the impact to businesses like when that's happening? Because it's like you can just feel the stress when you talk to them. And I love restaurants, so I'm always touring restaurants. I want to talk to the owners, see how things are going. I love it here. Everything's great. If I need more people, do you know anyone? I'm hiring.
Well, I do think it depends on the community you're in.
Mm.
I think some people will be listening to this podcast and be like, I'm fine on that. That's not my issue. And other people will be like, absolutely times 10, right? So to some areas, it's going to depend on which community you're in. But the impact at the end of the day, the guest just wants their meal and they want to be able to eat it, have a great experience and go home. And the fact that you're short, there's not always a lot of patience with, right?
Yeah.
And then they're going to go on whatever social media and have a serious impact to your business. So you see a lot of managers and GMs and owners now working, backfilling shifts. I mean, the phrase ghosting is really invented in the last, 7 years of people just not showing up to work.
Yeah.
Well, when they just don't show up, you still have guests walking in the door and you still have to manage that. So you end up with a lot of stress of people and owners working every shift on top of the job of being the leader, right?
Yeah.
That job was already a 60, 70-hour job. And now because you have to be on the floor or filling in the kitchen or doing other areas, the fatigue has been a lot.
Yeah. And also, like, as a business, you're taking a higher paid worker doing like in a different job, right? Because there's different scales. And so
Right.
that's like you're not allocating the normal resources. It's like taking a Ferrari and driving, yeah, I'm gonna go pick up some wood. Nothing wrong with that, but
Right.
it's like it's not the best way of using your car.
Well, there was a Hispanic restaurant years ago, and when the owner retired, they had multiple units. They offered their GMs the chance to buy the restaurant, and so they could have their own American dream on their own, right? Versus trying to sell to a corporation.
Yep.
Which I thought was one of the coolest things. I just thought that was so awesome. But their big thing in getting those people was stop trying to refill all the waters and stop trying to bust the tables. You need to lead, right? And that's a different job. You need to be able to stand back and see the problem and see the frustrated guest. And a lot of the folks who made that transition wanted to still be that on that servant heart thing. And I appreciate that. But all organizations need the leaders to lead in those moments where they needed to lead and see the bigger pictures and spend the time where it needs to be spent so you can service people tomorrow and the next day.
Mm-hmm. So what's your advice for owners that are struggling with this? And so if I have staffing issues, I'm short, people are not showing up, it's what can I do about that?
Well, one, I think it's really going to depend on the community you're in. And so you probably want to start by finding out, is it you or is it the community? And so I know we're nationwide on this, but I'd look at my local county or city's unemployment rate. Mm-hmm. And if it's under 4, then it's not just you, it's everybody. It's not your fault, right? So then you have to come up with a managed plan. If your community's over 6% unemployment, you're not targeting or recruiting correctly. And so you can do some better work there. So the first thing I'd find out, is it the mirror or is it the situation?
Got it.
And if it's the mirror, then I would really look hard at how I'm communicating. And to be really honest, boomers want to throw up a help wanted sign and think that's going to solve something. And Gen Z is going to want to find it online, throw in an online application. If you don't respond to it a couple of days, I think you moved on.
Right.
And so they're probably not connecting to today's world. And so how do you get the attention of I'll hire, but here's how I do it and get them to come in and we go from there. If you're in a community where you have less than 4% or less unemployment, there are no workers out there. So now you have to get creative. And I think people are getting creative. They're looking at more and more tech that can replace labor, that can be more efficient with labor. They're looking at more and more of what hours do I actually make money versus this implied feeling of restaurants in the 80s and 90s that I have to be open 24 hours. No, you don't. Not if you're not making money on those shifts. What are you gaining from that? And so I think a lot of people are adjusting their hours, and modern day software really says, I can look if I'm making money every hour. So which hours do I need bodies there, and which hours do I not? And how do I get more efficient at that?
Yeah, because even McDonald's no longer has all day breakfast at all locations, and so they've learned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and really in 2024, I think one of the biggest impacts was price elasticity of what people are willing to pay before they start pushing back.
Right.
2024 really saw us hit the outside wall of price elasticity. And so operators are really saying, all right, I can't charge anymore. So now I really have to look at what I can do and how do I reduce my my costs and still have great employees. And so I think people are taking a serious look at a variety of things. I think today is a fascinating time because, at least in Washington State, where the business model probably is broken and we're trying to invent a new one, we're seeing all these kind of ideas in the marketplace. Let's try this. Let's try that. No, it's not the way your grandpa ran a restaurant or your mentor ran a restaurant or what you saw in a restaurant when you were in high school, but it's going to be different and it might still work. And so I think you're seeing a lot of people try new ideas, try new concepts. I was at one restaurant not that long ago where there was a counter service, but you walked up to the counter, scanned a QR code, and you still placed your order on your phone, and they just handed you the food.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So they were
creative,
different. If it works and if it's great and if you can process more people and you can't find the person to watch that counter anyway, that can be a win.
Yep. And I've talked to like hundreds, if not thousands of owners now. And consistently they say, hey, we love our people, want them to stay, but paying more is not always the answer because a lot of times people want more than money now, especially like career growth, mentorship, supportive environment. Want to get your wisdom and thoughts in that area.
I'm gonna offer two things on that. One, I would agree that money isn't always the answer. If you're just chasing one more quarter, you're probably in the wrong fight.
Yep.
They're probably not people who really understand who you are or where you want to be or why that you are better than where they're headed. And I would say culture matters. One of the recommendations I always make, this kind of gets one of your earlier questions, is ask your team, hey, bring in any of your friends. We'll take all folks, use your team as recruiters. If your team won't recruit for you, there's probably a reason why.
This is a lot. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And so, but if your team will recruit and like, this is a great place to work, I'd love for my friends to work here. Right. Then I think, that goes from there. I'm a big fan of different kind of leadership. And in fact, I did a series of podcasts about leading restaurants differently. You're a young buck, but I grew up with my dad and most of the area where I was growing up, most of the restaurateurs came out of the military or had military background.
Oh, okay.
So they were used to that. The captain says, the sergeant says, so you do.
Yep.
Right? It was that militaristic, do it because I said you do it. Right? And the reality is that's not going to resonate with today's generation. Right? They want to believe in who they're working for. They want to believe in what they do. They want to believe that them being in your business today mattered and had an impact on someone's life. And so how do you spend a little time with your team about why they're working and why they're engaging and hook them into your passion? I don't know if you've met Joe Fougere from Tuda Bella's. He feels he doesn't sell pizza, he sells heart. And if you talk to Joe, if you hear me say that quote, you're like, okay, that's really corny, whatever. But if you talk to Joe, you're like, oh crap, he's really serious. And he talks about, he really wants his customer to feel love in Tuda Bella's. And that passion from Joe gives Joe a really low turnover.
Love it.
Right. Because they're working for someone who wants people to feel loved in their restaurant. And that's coming right from the CEO. And I can give you lots of examples like that, but 20 years ago, people would roll their eyes. You're like, what are you doing? Just yell at them. Their job's to pick up the dishes. Tell them to go pick up the damn dishes.
Yeah.
Right? Now you got to have to make them understand why that's important, why that makes people feel like they're having a better day, and why what those picking up those dishes means to someone, and how you know that they did a good job.
Yeah, and people have
And so,
options, right? Like, well,
yeah,
okay, if I'm gonna get yelled at, I'd rather pick up dishes at another place where I feel valued, right? Where
right.
I'm doing something meaningful. So yeah.
It's a big shift in how generations think and are valued.
Mm-hmm. What's so in my view right now, the elephant in the room is there a recession coming? And if so, what should operators be doing now to really prepare for it? Because I think it's on a lot of people's minds. And so, do you agree with that, or what are your thoughts in that area?
Washington might be a little bit unique than the rest of the country. We were pretty much shut down for 2 years during COVID, so the better part of 18 months. So we went through a really horrific stretch where the bills never stopped, but the customers were turned off, meaning government turned off and so we've never fully recovered from that. And so we might be a little unique. We had one good bounce back year, particularly in communities that were escape communities, meaning getting out to the coast or getting out to wine country or getting up to the mountains or getting out to the land of orcas and whales and in the Sound. But in the core of where most of the population lived, they've never really bounced back from COVID. And so the question now is, they've run out of wiggle room. How do they change to be different? And so what I would encourage them to do is look at the business model and make the hard calls.
Yep.
And make the decisions you've got to make. And if you're not profitable on Mondays, stop and open on Mondays. If you're not profitable for lunch, stop having servers at lunch and go all QR ordering, or try a robotic fryer, or we don't know the new model, but we know that we have to walk away from the old one because of our current dynamic.
Good points. So what's your thoughts on AI in the restaurant industry? I'm sure that's a hot topic. I'm sure you get asked a lot.
Everyone's talking about it. I don't think I haven't witnessed anyone who's like, oh, they've got it nailed. I think we all recognize its benefit in the small ways we can do it. But I don't think we have a best practice yet. I think we're right in the middle of this truly experimental idea sharing, how's it working world. And I don't think we're through the other side of it. So is AI absolutely gonna be part of our life? 100%. For operators who are not great, there's an operator who loves to live in Excel and dump all the data in Excel and separate it and do their menu math. But to be honest, a lot of chefs are artists and math isn't their passion.
Yeah.
So the ability to take the information and dump it in an AI and say, should I keep this item on the menu is huge. Which are my slowest shifts? Which shifts sell my most profitable items, and what shifts am I losing money because people are just buying the cheaper ones? If I, on the lodging side, really making decisions on pricing and hiring and other things, which have been going on for 4 or 5 years, and they're probably slightly ahead of the restaurants on that, but really helping you make better, more flexible decisions. And I think that is just starting and will continue to grow.
Yeah, even scheduling is not there, because I talked to a lot of operators and owners, and they're like, yeah, we just use a spreadsheet, screenshot, and paste in WhatsApp. Like, that's how they schedule. In like, yeah, it's a big deal. Like every week when they plan, right? Like, oh, I have to do those calculations. I have to think all these things, and it's just like you would think AI would solve that. Yeah.
The really interesting thing, I wish I could get the broader. One of the best things about working on our industry is the flexibility, right?
Yeah.
If you're a student and you got a test on Friday, swap shifts and go take the test.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
If you're a mom and your kid fell off their bike and you got to run them to the doctor's office, go. Right. Swap your shifts, change for lunch. And today's ability to have that, and trade and be in control of your own shift in a really flexible way, our employees really, really love. And the more you can make it, as long as the shift is covered, and you're not running into a bunch of overtime, as an employer, you're letting people choose their flexibility, and technology and AI really can allow that to happen. There are some lawmakers who feel like, well, everyone's shift should be set 2 weeks out. that's a total misread of what the employees want.
Yep.
They
They
want
need.
the ability
Yeah.
that if their kid is sick, they go take care of them, or if it's a nice day and someone else can cover their shift, cool.
Actually, it's funny you say that because like I know we're in tech and we work with a lot of restaurants. I use that terminology a lot, and so as we do like monthly team event planning, I call it a shift, and you got to trade shifts. It's like, hey, so we publish a calendar, you own that for that month, and if you can't do it, that's fine. Go trade it with someone else. So but
Right.
the idea is that area of responsibility and coverage and training. I haven't really seen that many other industries, but I feel like I've worked in others, but restaurants really dial that in. It's like, hey, on schedule, that's your shift now, and it's your job to make sure that it's covered, and you can trade it totally
Right.
fine. But I think it's very unique. But to your point, this is where community, camaraderie, all that thing is built, right? Because now
Huge.
you got that social capital to be able to do that and help out others.
And then there's times where people really want more shifts, and they're like,
Yep.
"Give me, give me, give me, give me."
Yep.
There's other times where, my dad is sick. I got to take him to some care or some other stuff, and who can trade me out? But and I got to move from more days to nights for a little bit, and so it's incredibly popular in our industry. But you're right. What other part of the world can a construction guy call and say, "Hey, I don't feel like doing this today. I'm going to call someone else."
Yeah, you can't do that. Yeah.
Doesn't happen in any other industry.
Yeah, you can't do that. Yeah, let's zoom out a bit. So let's say 5-10 years from now, what does a thriving restaurant look like? So, as we kind of peer into the future, paint a picture for us.
Well, let's paint what I want to have happen.
Okay.
I think one of the fascinating things, and you and I talked about this when we first got to know each other, no one got into hospitality because they love technology. They get into hospitality because they love the great experience of having you come in and have a great time in their bar, or be able to come on a resort or a vacation and really just, be able to relax or have a great time or enjoy wine or taste great food. They got into it for the artistic community, hospitality, reward, better day. That's why they love this industry. So the idea of tech replacing people is anti-hospitality thought. And yet we're one of the state's largest private employers, one of the country's largest private employers, and we're one of the least tech advanced industries, even in the Northwest, which is a massive tech hub, right? We've got Microsoft, Amazon, Real. I mean, we've got all these tech companies. And yet the generations who are stubborn about it have moved on, and new generations are like, well, wait a minute. We don't have to lose hospitality or creativity and use tech. So my hope is we can create vision and ideas and a path where we can really use technology to return to some healthy margins.
Love it. Yeah.
And so I don't know what that's going to look like. We're in the middle of that experimentation, but we're going to see more and more tech. But I don't think tech means you have to lose our smile.
Yep.
And what does that look like?
Yeah, and you're really arming them with like more tools. Like you're giving them more superpowers and really enabling. It's like, I don't know. I like quote my favorite teachers. You use the right tool for the right job. Now you have more tools, right? And more things to help you.
Well, there was there's something I thought was going to take off and it wasn't quite ready yet, and still could, or versions of it, right? The 3.0 or 4.0 version could. But there was a robot called Servi, and the idea wasn't replacing your servers. It was just, it would go back to the kitchen, grab the dishes, or the dishes would be loaded on it. It would take it to the front. So your server stayed out front on the floor, handing out the dishes. So that way your server was more walking from table to table, finding out whose water needed full. They weren't back in the kitchen waiting on that plate to be ready. Or they weren't running back to the dish pit to scrape a dish to come back, right? They were... So technology doesn't have to be anti-hospitality. It can increase it.
Yeah. Make it more efficient.
Done right.
Yeah. Kind of like, that's true. So if you were to coach a new restaurant owner today, what's your number one advice? Let's say they're just opening a restaurant. Oh, I'm so excited. I got my, grandma's favorite recipe. It's awesome. And what's where do you start? What do you coach them on?
I'd encourage them to understand the financials before they just woke up and ran. Do you know who Yogi Berra is? You remember the name Yogi Berra?
Of course. Yeah,
So
yeah.
for your listeners who don't, he's the old Yankees catcher, Yankees manager, comedian character. Uh, and his one of my favorite quotes of his was, "Everyone in the world thinks they can do three things better than everyone else in the world: run a baseball team, make love,
Mhm.
and run a restaurant."
I see.
And pretty hilarious quote for the 30s,
Yeah.
right, or 40s. But I think about that all the time, because what other business do you walk into probably 3-4 nights a week and look around and say, I could do this,
Mm.
right? Not a lot of people are in your lab, looking at all the awesome stuff you're creating each week, saying, "Oh, look at this," or in a paper factory, or at a construction site, right? But we're in restaurants all the time, and so we develop this connection and this personality, this excitement. I can go do this, but they don't look at the financials
Mm. Yeah.
and really understand, well, what do you need to make? Well, this restaurant did $1 million in sales last year. I want to make $1 million. You're not going to make $1 million on $1 million in sales. You're going to make 16,000. So you need to do way more than that. And I'd really spend, even though it isn't the passion side of the industry, before you get yourself committed and lose everything chasing a dream that I want you to have, to call your association, call locally, understand the restaurant model, and then look at your lease, look at what you're trying to sell, and just spend a little time on the math. Then if you like the numbers and what you see in math, go for it, because I love the industry.
That's great.
But if you don't make it, and if you're not making enough to pay your family's bills and meet mortgage, then as much as I love you, you're not going to be here 2 more years to do it.
Yeah, and it's not good for the community either, right? Because no one likes a restaurant that just started and fizzled out, right? We want something enduring.
But we are a very attractive industry. People love their experiences and they want to be part of it. And I get it.
Nice, nice. Well, hey, this has been an amazing time. Thank you so much. I think people are going to love this. We learned so much. So last question is really, what should I have asked that I didn't ask?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know if I'm coming up with something really creative in the moment. I mean, I'm blessed to have a job that I love. I'm blessed to help people chase the American dream every day, from all kinds of walks of life. I mean, every angle of you can think of it, that they've opened a hotel or a restaurant or a bowling alley or a coffee shop or a what have you. I mean, I was talking to this one guy who opened a taco shop, and he completely designed it while he was in drug rehab in prison, right? And he came out of that with a passion for tacos and a passion to make it work, and then he opened up 3 stores, and it set him on a path, right? And he was a heck of a character. I got to talk to him at length, right? To the people who inherited their families' restaurants, to people who still come to this country with pursuing the American dream and bringing their food and their heritage and their culture to us, and are so excited to do it. And so, I mean, I think if you can get a job that you love, that's a place to be, and I'm very blessed to have that happen.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for everything. This is wonderful. Last thing is that if people want to get in touch with you or connect with you in some way, like, what do you recommend? What's the best way?
Well, you can always just, like everything else, go to the website, wahospitality.org, and check us out. And you can click to About and find an email and learn more about us. And I think probably a lot of your people aren't even in the industry. Get to know your local operator. Come in. Their stories are wonderful. I mean, I think you're going to have a better appreciation for where you eat out when you know the backstory of the person who's running that bar, restaurant, tavern, teriyaki place, what have you, and you really become a part of their lives. So
Love it. Yeah, and share on social. I think operators, owners, they need that. And so, yeah, if you enjoyed something, definitely do it.
they will not turn it down. So yeah, appreciate it, having me on very much. I'm looking forward to working with you more in the future. And everybody, I hope you have a great spring and summer. Get out to your local mom and pop restaurant and show them the love.